If you're watching this, then that means that you already tried these practice problems on your own. So this is just for you to be able to see how you did. So for question 1, it tells us to circle the correct answer using the space below and then explain with capital letters and punctuation and restating why the other answers are not correct. So when it says question 1, which claim about the effect of the oil spill on the killer whale population is best supported by the data patterns on the graph? So food sources for group 1 whales were the most affected by the spill. So if I'm looking at group 1 and we know that this is where the oil spill was, if we're talking about the food sources, so that would mean if the fish were to decrease, then I would expect my population of killer whales that eats the fish to decrease. But if we're looking at this trend or what the pattern is that's happening with it, that group 1 is increasing, so it cannot be A. So I'm going to write letter A cannot be correct because group 1's population is increasing. And I've got capital letters and punctuation. Now, B says food sources for group 2 whales were negatively affected by the oil spill. So if I know negatively affected means negative is bad. So if group 2's population, whatever it eats, so the sea lions and seals were to decrease, I would expect group 2 to decrease. Well, that's what happened. So I'm going to come back to that because that might be my correct answer, but it might not be. Letter C, the whales in group 1 only experienced a temporary change in their population size after the oil spill. Temporary means like just a short amount of time. Well, if this was the oil spill, it never bounced back up. It stayed for, like 1988 to 2004, it still was really low. So it never bounced back up. It wasn't temporary, it was permanent. So I'm going to write, we know letter C cannot be it. So letter C cannot be correct because the change in population of group 2 was, I'm going to say, permanent, not temporary. Group D, or letter D, the whales in group 2 experienced a continuous change. Continuous means that it's steady, continuous change in their population size after the oil spill. So continuous means like it's always changing. So if I'm looking at group 2, I see it, what is that, about 1991, 92 to about 2000. It's staying exactly the same, so it's not continuous, it's not changing a bunch. So it can't be letter D. So I'm going to write letter D cannot be correct because between years, 1992 and 2000, the population was stable, which means that it was the same. And so as long as you have something similar, that's fine. So the correct answer was B. Now let's check the back side and see how you did with that. So this is where you had to read this passage and then you had to kind of explain what was happening. So this now takes us to 2014 based on the same passage. It was talking about 1989, now it's 2014. So it says, explain how the recovery of the bald eagle population likely affected the recovery of the salmon population. And we know that recovered means they're back to the way they were. In the process, they're almost back, and not showing strong recovery would mean that they're just not really making that much progress. So I would say even staying the same or decreasing. So it's saying, how could the bald eagle either staying the same or decreasing, how could that impact or likely impact the recovery of the salmon? And we know the salmon have completely almost recovered. Well, if the bald eagle is the salmon's predator, if there aren't as many predators, then the salmon population is able to recover because it doesn't have as many things eating it. So I restated, the slow recovery of the bald eagle population likely affected the recovery of the salmon population by the salmon had less predators, that was the bald eagle, eating it, so it was able to recover in numbers. So it didn't have as many things eating it, so it was able to recover. Now let's look at the next thing. Explain the most likely reason the salmon population fully recovered, even though the herring population, so the herring, did not show strong progress. So the herring was either staying the same or decreasing. So how is it that the salmon were able to increase, but what it eats was decreasing? Well, this is just an example. It's not everything that those things eat out in nature, those organisms. So the salmon could have other predators. The salmon also could be eating other organisms other than herring. They probably don't just eat one thing out in nature. And the same thing with the herring might have other predators other than salmon. It's not like Isle Royale where there was really only one predator, one prey, like the moose and the wolf. For this, herring could have more than one predator, which could cause the population to stay down, or the salmon could be eating other prey other than herring. So, the most likely reason the salmon population fully recovered, even though the herring population did not show strong progress to recovery, because the salmon could have other prey to eat other than herring, or the herring could have other predators than the salmon. And I'm going to say in real life. So as long as you have something similar, that's fine.